Hi everyone, welcome to my divisional previews for the 2018-2019 season. Up first is the Stanley Cup champion Washington Capitals, and I have them finishing third in the Metropolitan Division. So obviously the Washington Capitals are the Stanley Cup champions, which is kind of a surprise because they didn't really have the best roster, especially after they loaded up for those two times they won the President's Trophy. They had a much weaker team than in previous years, but as you can see, elite center depth with Backstrom, Kuznetsov, and Eller really helps you out, and that's the way of the future, I guess. Especially considering the previous two Stanley Cup champions also had elite center depth with Crosby, Malkin, and Eller. So obviously in the offseason they lost guys like Johansson, Nate Schmidt, Karl Alsner, among others. So when I look at their forward group, Evgeny Kuznetsov has been one of the best primary point producers in the NHL over the past 3 seasons. He's an elite number one centerman. I think Nick Backstrom, it looks like he's declining a little bit. May have just been an off year. I know he had an injured hand in the playoffs, but he's still a very good center in the probably in the 10 to 20 range, probably 15 to 20. He's been criminally underrated for a really long time because he's been in Ovechkin's shadow, I guess you could say, but he's been elite defensively, elite offensively for a while. I just think that maybe it's an off year, maybe it's age catching up to him, maybe it's injuries. We don't know. We'll have to see this season. The ringer depth is obviously quite strong, and it obviously starts with Ovechkin. He's an incredible player. He's easily a top five left winger. I think he's behind guys like Hall and Marchand, but in that 3 to 5 range, I think that's definitely where he sits. Tom Wilson, they have him up on the top line. I don't really like him. He's probably a third or fourth liner. That contract that they gave him is ridiculous. Um, they have TJ Oshie, who's probably a great second line winger and could play on the top line, but I think they have a couple of really underrated ringers like Burakovsky and Verana. I think Burakovsky's been underrated for a really long time. He has great underlying numbers. He seems to drive play, skates well, um, and yeah, he's a great young player. Defensively, on paper, they look quite strong. Matt Niskanen was in my top 10 defensive defenseman video. John Carlson was in my top 10 offensive defenseman video. They have guys like Dmitry Orlov, who's been really good. And then they picked up a guy like Kempny at the trade deadline from Chicago, and he's been underrated for a while there in Chicago. He had pretty good underlying numbers relative to his team, and they signed him to an extension. I really like him. I think he could be a top pairing defender. And then they have Juice, I believe he was a rookie last season, but I really like him. Um, Whoever plays with him, their results skyrocket. So he's a really good smooth skating puck moving defenseman, and then Hope he's a damn good goalie. Although he was pretty inconsistent last year. So looking at the underlying numbers of the Washington Capital team, they're a bottom 10 possession team, bottom 10 in both offensive, defensive possession or suppression. So in Corsi 4, they were 48.4%, 24th in the NHL. Corsi 4 per 60, 48.3%, 23rd. So they weren't really good at generating um, or generating scoring, generating shots. Corsi against per 60, 51.48, 25th at NHL. So they really bled a lot of shots, and I believe that has to do with the system because guys like Niskanen and Orlov and Kempny have been good for a really long time on the defensive side, especially a guy like Niskanen. In terms of goals, 4 per 60, 2.46, which is 7th, so they had no problem scoring. Um, Goals against per 60, 2.21, 13th best in the NHL. So the results, obviously, the actual on ice results were definitely in their favor and made them kind of a 7 to 13 ish team. So an average team, nothing too amazing. Their expected goals I got from Corsica was 2.17, which is 22nd best in the NHL, which again mediocre, not great at all. And expected goals against per 60 was 2.44, which is 25th in the NHL. So again, not amazing. In terms of PDO, they were a pretty lucky team last season. They had a PDO of 101.64, which, if you don't know, 100 is around an average, and if you don't know what PDO is, it's essentially a measure of luck, percentage-driven outcome. You can look it up on the internet. There's tons of good articles around it. It's becoming more of a mainstream statistic now. So um, their PDO kind of suggests that they were a little bit lucky last season, and the shooting percentage as a team or their save percentage might come down a little bit. And the last thing I look at is penalty differential, and They had a minus 24 penalty differential, was 28th in the NHL, so they take a ton of penalties, and um, which is a concern because of how good their power play is. You want that power play on on the ice as much as possible with Ovechkin there on the left circle, um, and guys like Kuznetsov and Backstrom and Carlson and Oshie. So they definitely need to generate more power plays if they want more regular season success. So by and large, they really outperform their underlying numbers, which isn't a great thing for the future um, in terms of predicting their future results. However, they beat all their on ice results, so maybe it could happen again. Especially when you're top 10 in goals for per 60, and then top 15 in goals against per 60. But we'll have to see if that adds up. So their most important player, I believe, is Michael Kempney. I try and pick people who aren't really mainstream or aren't too obvious. Like I could easily pick a guy like Kuznetsov or Holtby, but that would be boring. So Kempney came over from Chicago. He really excelled. As I said, he's always been a really underrated player. When you're looking at his relative stats to his teammates, I mean, his scoring chance differential and his shot differential has always been really good in Chicago, and I think that he's definitely been underrated for a long time. And I think that they lost a guy like Alsner to a similar contract that they gave Kempney, and Kempney, I believe, is a huge upgrade over a guy like Alsner, who's kind of a slow and doesn't really suppress shots really well, has a reputation for being a defensive defenseman, which really isn't the case. And I believe their player that needs to improve this season is Nick Backstrom. He needs to get back to the level that he was at in the previous seasons, where he was really underrated and one of the league's top two-way players, two-way centers. And I don't know if he's going to be playing with Ovechkin or Oshie on the second line, but they definitely need him to get going and bounce back if they want to make some more noise in the playoffs and probably try and repeat as champions. I don't know if they can do it, but that's what they're going to try and do. So I see the Capitals again as third in the Metropolitan Division. So quite comfortably in the playoffs. I don't think that they really have too poor of a chance of missing the playoffs. I mean, I think they should make it pretty comfortably, but they got a new coach, new system. Anything can happen, but I think that the Caps are going to be in the playoffs. So thank you for watching this video. Please like and subscribe, and peace.